Good morning, everybody, and welcome to What Now? We have got a lot to talk about today. Welcome to What Now with Scott Duffy, presented by SAP Concur. We have got a huge show. I have so much to share. It has been a race since the moment I woke up this morning to get up and get on with it. I have so much to share with you this morning. Things in the news, ideas for you to help you to grow your business. We have an incredible guest who's joining us in just a little bit today, Amilya Antonetti. And also, I have a new event. I've been talking about it. I've been teasing it, but I have an event that we're ready to announce today. It actually just hit the wire, so I'm really excited to share the COVID Business Festival, and we're going to talk all about that. If you're joining us for the first time on YouTube or Facebook, I ask you to do this. Please, if you're here for the first time, write down your name, the industry that you're in, and the biggest challenges that you're running up against, so that I can go in and I can adjust and I can adapt this program just for you. Again, I want to welcome you from wherever you're joining, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, if you're here from Instagram or Periscope, listening on Dash Radio nationwide. If you are watching on Apple or Roku, I want to welcome you. And again, if you're watching on social, please drop your name in the comments, the industry that you're in, and what you're working on, so that we can customize this show for you. We have so much to talk about today. I'm just going to drop right into it. Here we go. Good morning. My name is Scott Duffy, and this is What Now with Scott Duffy, presented by SAP Concur. I want to welcome you from wherever you are listening. You can tune in each day at 10 a.m. Pacific time to watch the live broadcast on YouTube and Facebook, or download the podcast. This show is for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and those thinking about starting their own companies. It's for people affected by this economy. Maybe they lost their job, their business, they were furloughed, or they saw their consulting contracts canceled, and for many people it happened just like that. It's for people who are asking the question, what do I do now, and how do I come out of this crisis even stronger? Our focus today is going to be around crisis. It's going to be, how do you manage crisis? And to do this, I am bringing in possibly the top crisis manager in the United States. What do you do when things go sideways? That's what we're going to talk to Amilya Antonetti about. Today, Amilya is one of the top crisis managers in the world. She works with Fortune 100 companies and top celebrity brands like Steve Harvey, Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, to help them navigate through difficult times. And we're going to discuss her outlook for COVID, and also what she's telling not only big companies, but also her SMB clients about how to manage through coronavirus, how to build great companies, and how to get through the challenges that all of us face. And by the way, if you're in crisis, if you're in a business that is really struggling, if you're really up against it right now, I really recommend that you stay tuned to this show and fire your questions away in the social comments so that we can ask Amilya, because I have to tell you, this woman is amazing. And again, we can't wait to have her on in just a second. In the news today, the number of COVID-19 cases worldwide and here in the United States keeps going up. The number of deaths keeps going up. Areas around the U.S., actually areas around U.S. meat plants, have become breeding grounds for infection. Anthony Fauci says that we have at least 8 vaccines that are now being tested. Meanwhile, Wuhan is testing all 11 million of its residents as a new wave seems to be emerging in China. And the question I have to ask is, if Wuhan is able to test 11 million people in one city, if in South Korea, I can go to every corner store, every 7-Eleven, every little grocery store and market, and I can get a free instant test or an inexpensive instant test and know immediately whether or not I have this thing or not, why in the heck can't we do it here? The biggest, the greatest, the most entrepreneurial country in the planet, how can we not do it ourselves? I just find this baffling. Now, it was another interesting day yesterday. So the country started to open up. States are letting small businesses open their doors under very strict guidelines. Yesterday, the governor of California laid out his plan for allowing restaurants and additional types of small businesses to reopen. So it's awesome to see us moving to that next step. And I had a chance to get out yesterday, and it was just weird. I just think there's a huge vacuum for national leadership. I'd like to know what the plan is, because right now we got a lot of plans. There's 50 states There are 3,000 counties in the United States. There's 19,495 cities, and each one seems to have their own idea of what we should be doing. And so as an entrepreneur, as a guy that's just trying to get by, it is really awfully confusing. I'm in favor of one plan. Let all small businesses open their doors, practice social distancing and safety precautions. That's the plan that I'm the most in favor for, because you can't tell people that they can't work and then throw them under the bus by not suspending things like mortgage payments and rent payments and car payments. You can't tell them not to work, but that they've got to pay everything and pay it all on time. It just doesn't make sense. 55% of SMBs say they're going to shut their doors within the next few weeks. Think about that. 1 in every 2 SMBs reports that it will be shutting down within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And the reason, many of these just don't have a shot. They don't have a shot because they're not allowed to open up. Now, to make things even more difficult, we have what is becoming a PP nightmare for many small businesses. And what does this mean? What this means is owners have accepted money from the government to bring people back to work. Now, if owners took that money in and they use that money for some very specific purposes to bring back workers. So that means spend 75% of the money on payroll and then spend the majority of the rest of the money on things like mortgage payments and interest, utilities, rent, things like that. If they were to follow a certain set of guidelines, again, the biggest guideline was bring their people back to work, then what would happen is that money that they were given would be waived. It would be a loan, it would be forgiven. Or it would not be a loan, it would be a grant, it would be forgiven. And the problem that they're having is people don't want to come back to work. People don't want to come back to work because they're getting not only unemployment, but they're getting a $600 weekly bonus on their unemployment. So many of them are making more money by staying home than they would be if they go back to work. And this leaves small businesses in a really tough position. It leaves them in a position where they got to bring people in, but the people don't want to come back. And so now, because they're not getting any additional commentary, they're not getting any direction, any feedback, any advice from the federal government or the SBA who provided them with that money, they run the risk, now that they've taken it, of having that money convert from what they thought would be a grant by bringing their people back into a loan that they're going to be responsible for paying back. And some of these loans range from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. So I'm talking to small business owners all over the country, and they're just asking, Scott, what do I do? And it is really, really an interesting thing. So the $600 bonus attached to unemployment goes until August. That's when it ends. And that's when you would get your regular unemployment payment. Now, the Democrats have proposed a bill where that would actually run through the end of the year. We'll see what happens there. But again, it is a challenge. Finally, there's several parts of the U.S. that still have not opened at all and have expanded stay-at-home restrictions into next year. So again, people who took the money thinking they would be able to use it right away and deploy it the way they were supposed to deploy it in order to have that money waived, in these states, they don't have a fighting chance because they still can't open up. So it's a really interesting time out there. And where does this leave small business? For many, it leaves them frustrated, angry, hopeless, confused because they're in crisis and they're not sure what to do next, which is why we're bringing in Amilya today. And this is actually her calling. So let me do this. How's this for real time? We are on right now. How can I help? I will send you another right now. Thanks. So how is that for like doing something in the age of COVID? All right, so what she needs is she needs a new link. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that link and we're going to go over here. And this is just how we roll today. It's just how we roll. And we're going to send her this link right here. And then she's going to join us. And she is amazing. She's absolutely amazing. There we go. So we're back. Where I left off was, where do businesses go from here? So I want to talk about the travel industry for just a bit. And I want to talk about the travel industry because you guys know I love the travel industry. I was a part of the travel industry. I had a business that was acquired by Virgin, which is a huge player worldwide in the travel industry. But man, the travel industry is taking a beating. I love the people. I love the culture. And it's really hard to watch what's happening. Travel is the largest employer in the world. Travel employs over 100 million people, but it may be the hardest hit industry of all of them. It's really interesting. I'm just looking at these numbers right now. James Fallows had an awesome article yesterday in The Atlantic, and he was talking about air travel. What he mentioned is this: the airline industry, both directly and indirectly, impacts an estimated 10 million jobs in America. Now, check this out. In April 2020, airline bookings were down 98%, and the average domestic flight in the United States only had 12 and a half passengers. Imagine that. Total airport visitors dropped from 2.3 million to 95,000 a day. Now, a big reason this is happening is that people don't feel safe. And there's really two things that are going to need to change. Number one is the idea of a vaccine. So people know if they get on a plane with all of these people in tight quarters that they're going to be safe. And number two, people are going to have to be able to afford to travel. So that's another big factor today. And rebounding in the airline industry takes time. As an example, after 9/11, traffic was down at LAX and Los Angeles 30%. And that 30% took 10 years to recover. As of yesterday, traffic at LAX is down over 95%. So think about what it's going to require for them to recover. Now, airlines, it's not simple. There's a lot that kind of goes on here. You know, this industry is super highly regulated. And one of the reasons they're suffering so much today is really ironic. They're being forced to stay open while other businesses like restaurants are being forced to stay closed. Every time that plane flies with 12 passengers, it's losing money. Now, all of this creates some really interesting opportunities for entrepreneurs. And really, that's what this show is about. It's not just reporting what's happening, but how do we leverage what's happening in order to help propel us forward? So just as an example, the booking process today to get on an airplane, is that something that we can make easier? The security process, I want you to think about this. As an entrepreneur, new needs that are emerging. We have scanners at airports for explosives that we all have to go through when we check in to the airport. So what about fevers, like in China? What kind of masks will you wear at the airport? You know, in China, you not only go through a scanner that checks to see if you have explosives on you, but you go through a scanner now to check to see if you have a fever. It actually is able to detect that. What kind of opportunities does that create for you as the entrepreneur? Are you going to wipe down your luggage? Are you going to wipe down your luggage trays? What does that mean? In terms of the passenger process, again, let's think about how we can maybe apply some of these ideas to our businesses. In terms of the passenger process, you're going to have to bring your own pillow and your own blanket because those things will no longer be on planes. You'll probably need to bring a sack lunch. You're going to have to bring your own food. It won't be available in flight. Your seat is going to be UV cleaned before you get on it, but you may want to wipe it down. Does that create a product opportunity for you as an entrepreneur? And who's going to wipe it down? Remember carry-on bags? You carry all these bags and try and stuff them in the upper compartment thing? Well, those are probably going to be a thing of the past. And the reason is when you put those up, what happens is there's too much of a risk it's going to touch somebody else. And so you'll probably just be able to bring your one bag and that's it, and not an additional check-in. Now, again, this is just how an industry is changing. As an entrepreneur, I want you to think about what this could possibly mean for you and for your business. If you're thinking about what you do next, is there an opportunity here you might be interested in solving or a problem you might want to solve? Think about the crew process. The crews, what's being floated around right now is they'll get to a city, and instead of being able to travel outside of that city, they're going to be quarantined to their hotel until they actually get back on the plane. This is already happening in China. If you're stuck at a hotel, what kind of new opportunities does that create? And think about the innovation. Like, this is what I really love. When there's a big problem and you put an entrepreneur in front of it, what kind of innovation takes place? Think about this. Is this the time that we start to really develop electric planes? Is this the time that we double down on low emissions? Is this the time that we start to create and really focus on personal flying vehicles? Will there be more investments in high-speed rail? You know, our airlines, I really want to ask this question seriously, are airlines the horse buggies of the past? I really don't know. So The question again I have is, how can you apply this thinking and attach it to your business? What if you opened your mind and you opened your mind up to all possibilities for serving your customer? How would that help you through this crisis? Now, I'm bringing up the word crisis again. And what I have is like something just so awesome for you guys. I'm going to bring Amilya in here in just a second. And Amilya, when it comes to crisis and crisis management, now this is just a part of what she does, but there is nobody better on the planet. And so I'm going to have her join us right now. There she is. Amilya Antonetti,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm doing great. I loved your intro. That's on. I'm bringing my whoopee on the plane now.
Bring your whoopee on the plane. Hey, before we start talking and digging into this, you know what I want to do? We still haven't talked about this. I want to announce COVID.
Oh,
And
yes. Oh, my God. Yes.
You are one of our featured speakers, and so this is like perfect. So what I wanted to announce today is May 21st and May 22nd, we will be throwing the COVID Business Festival. And the purpose of this festival is to help people, to help businesses that are struggling to stay open or they're being forced to close. Entrepreneurs, it's for people who have lost their job, they've been furloughed, they've seen their consulting contracts disappear. And they're asking the question, what do I do now? And how do I come out of this crisis even stronger? And we have assembled an incredible group of speakers over a 2-day period, the 21st and the 22nd, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific. And I want to pull this up and share some of who we are going to have at this amazing event, which is presented.
It's a great lineup. It's an amazing lineup. It really is.
It is presented by SAP. I just want to make sure to share that with everybody. It is the COVID Business Festival brought to you by and presented by SAP Concur. They made all of this possible. An example of some of the people that will be speaking at this event. We have the founder of UGG Boots. Of course, we have Amilya, who will be there as well. We have Grant Cardone. Many of you know Grant Cardone, the founders of Pictionary, Priceline.com, VH1 host, the founder of Make-A-Wish, motivational speaker Les Brown. We've got best-selling author and speaker Greg Reed, David Meltzer, Forbes Riley, sold like over $1 billion or something on QVC and HSN. We have Ryan Dice, the founder of Digital Marketer, Joe Theismann, NFL Hall of Fame quarterback, Andre Reed, NFL Hall of Fame wide receiver. We have Michael Gorton. He is the founder of Teladoc. Teladoc, I mean, this is so cool, like the biggest telemedicine company on the planet.
$13 billion.
13 billion bucks. So we have got this insane lineup. We have got some musicians and entertainers that we can't talk about yet, but we can talk about tomorrow that are also going to be joining us. So Amilya, I want to thank you so much for coming on and kind of kicking things off.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. I mean, this is a huge opportunity time in, everybody's life. This is the biggest change and reset we've ever seen. And so as an entrepreneur, I'm like, game on, let's go.
So let me ask you a question. You are out there. First of all, it seems like most of your life, you have been managing crisis from the time you were 15. And we've talked about this. Can you share a little bit of your background?
I think I'm very much like most entrepreneurs, is I always kind of ticked to my own drum. And was a little bit outside of the box. And so I started my first company at 17. I sold it at 19. It kind of put me on the map, especially if back then, there wasn't a woman who was running like $100 million company. So they're like, who is this chick? And then somebody asked me if I could do it for somebody else. And I was like, I don't know the answer to that question. And I accidentally stepped into sports and did it for sports personalities. And then they asked me if I could do it in music. And so I did it for music personalities. And then they asked me, what about entertainment? And so it just kind of slowly went from there. And then I started working with really big brands who were specializing in distress management, distress companies, and those big turnarounds. And I just really been all over the gamut. But the thread of the commonality is really working in crisis, right? Or conflict management, change management. It's change's title. It's the same thing. And I am a human behaviorist. That's really where my foundation started. And it started that way because I had to figure out, how do I run 49,000 employees when I'm not paying the top in my industry? How do I understand what people problems are and how do I decode that? And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we continue to do, right? We're big change agents, working in the space from entertainment, sports, top Fortune 500. But we really excel in times like this to help leaders and executives approach the problem entirely differently than how they've been trained to, right? This is this big myth out there, is that CEOs are like, oh, and I'm like, wait a minute, there is no shame in pivoting a plan. There's no shame in that, right? A CEO or an executive is trained to look way out front, right? Look at Z, where they're trying to go, and go, how do I make a plan from A to Z and then close that gap? That will kill you in a crisis. Kill you. So it's not that leaders and executives don't know what to do. They just haven't learned the skill set of crisis, right? And the last time we were really tested in our skill sets was in 2008. Well, a lot of these CEOs were not in the game in 2008. Like, I remember 2008, it handed my ass to me. And so I'm like, oh, I remember that. Let's bring back some of those tools. And that's what we're doing, is we're teaching skill building for crisis, quick change, pivot planning, opportunities in the marketplace, how to take something antiquated, reinvent it, like you were talking about, make it new, hit the opportunities where it is, and not look at it as, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that's happening. Let's take a look at your industry and decide the best thing that's happening.
What do you do? So we talked about this today. There are so many people out there that went and they got the PPP loan. And they thought they were getting the PPP grant, is what they thought they were getting. They thought that they were going to get this money, would come in, they would spend the money the way they were supposed to spend it, according to the SBA, right, on people and on mortgage payments, on utilities and rent and things like that. And then that money would be would be waived. Like they wouldn't have to pay the money back as a loan. It would be waived, it would become a grant. And so they went out and they took this money, and now they're finding a couple things. One, they're finding their stores can't open because they're still under restriction. They're finding two, that their people don't want to come back. They want to stay on unemployment. And they're pulling out, I can't do it, but they're pulling out their hair. and they're trying to figure out, what do I do? What would you tell those people? Because this is the number one thing that's coming at me right now from entrepreneurs.
Well, I think it's the approach, right, to the problem, right? It just, even same with your relationship with money, right, is the concept of having money not work for you, right? So why do investors come in and they go, I don't want to pay for any past debt, right? So anytime you have a dollar, cash is king, and you try to go backwards, you're losing. Yeah. Right. It's about getting money to work for you based on where the market is, not where your problem is. Right. And so that's a different mindset. So when you talk about somebody pulling their hair out because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a restaurant and I no longer can function in my business plan as a restaurant. Great. Stop thinking about yourself as a restaurant. Yeah. What do you do better than anybody else? Is it the branding of the restaurant? Is it the service of the restaurant? Was it the people building of the restaurant? Was the menu creation of the restaurant? Was it the experience of the restaurant? Right? Entrepreneurs have to remember that you have to decode what is the one thing that you do better than anything else. Don't look at about the problems that everything else causes for you. Because once you can name your genius, then you can say, okay, based on the market, how are all of the ways that I can get out there with my genius? Yes. Then you're going to have to look at, this is the business that I'm in. That's the business that I'm going in. And then how do we close that plan? That's crisis management, right? Getting you from where you are to where you want to be, but not all the way out in the plan, because you got to remember, every time you take one step towards the right direction or the wrong direction, the universe gives you more information. So you can't have a long-term plan in crisis. It is step, analyze, measure, pivot. Step, analyze, measure, pivot. To start saying what's working, why is it working, right? Or where is the problem that scares the heck out of somebody else, but you actually are attracted to it, right? The problem of saying, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to get onto an airplane, right? And I'm not going to be able to take my luggage with me. All right, there's an opportunity. How else can luggage get there? Like, so for myself personally, I haven't carried carry-on in 5 years, right? I ship my stuff to my hotel and it gets there before I do, clothes and all, right? Because I don't want to be without my shoes. So, so it's just reinventing the space, but not getting so married, right, to the business that you're in. That's the problem you're having right now. People are like, but I've been in this business for 10 years and I've spent millions of dollars and I. Well, guess what? That's over.
Yeah.
Right? What business are you going to be in? And then we'll solve the problem of how we fix the old thing. But sometimes it hurts like hell, but sometimes you just got to cut that dead weight and start again. Because the longer you're rooted into what's holding you down, it's stopping you from jumping forward. And that doesn't mean that that's easy, but a lot of us in 2008 had to do that. Like we had to take some big hits, right? I mean, I was heavily into real estate in 2008. Like I was choking, right? And I had to realize going, okay, as hard as this is, I got to let it go, right? Because I had to free myself up to restart again with the least amount of weight I was carrying. So that means letting go of employees and people and real estate and investments and portfolio. A lot of time in the trenches that I had with stuff that it hurt because I didn't want to let it go. But you see people all that time. Well, I'm going to stay in the relationship until the kids get older. All right. So you're going to be miserable for how many years before you start your life? Same thing with the business. So you're going to hold on to this business that's not working for what? Till you prove what? Maybe let's think about letting it go, right? Letting it go and starting again.
And, I think one of the biggest, mistakes that I made in the past when 2008 hit and I was trying to figure out what to do next is, sometimes what we do is we double down on what it is that we know. So we do the same thing, but we do it more and harder, instead of going out and learning a new skill. Because yes, we've been doing something for a long time. It worked for us. We knew how to do it. We weren't afraid of it. And right now, maybe being afraid of something is actually a good thing. Maybe that's the forcing function to get us to develop a new skill, to adapt, to change. We were just talking about you were talking about restaurants, and I talked to a restaurant owner yesterday here in Los Angeles, and he actually converted his restaurant into a grocery store. Boom, he's open.
I mean, I've seen all kinds. Listen, I've watched people in hospitality that's going out, right, and reinventing the hospitality industry, right? They're going out and repurposing properties. They're changing with their service offering, all kinds of stuff. And just like for you, for example, in 2008, you didn't learn a new skill. What you did was you modernized the skill that you had. Right? That's what you really did. Yeah. And that's what people need to take a look at that. If you've been in business more than 5 years, you need to come up to speed with where the world is now. How has technology changed your skill, right? How does systems and automation, how does all of it change your skill set so that you can get ahead of what may be your next great business?
I always like to say that whatever it was 5 years ago, like your superhero power, that thing that made you you over the last 5 years, that thing that you are so good at is your baggage today. And that's the hardest thing to leave behind. And so, but we have to do it. And you just asked the question, like, how long do you wait? And why would you wait instead of just getting started? It's
no different than what we learn. What do we hear? We hire slow and we fire fast. Sure. It's the same thing with the problem. Identify that problem slow. Once you know what it is, cut it out. Even if it's you that's in the way, right? So I'm bringing a lot of my clients right now. There's perfect time they're bringing in their proteges, right? To take a look at their business through a younger, quicker, fast pace, or even a different category. We're going to see a lot of mergers and acquisitions that are happening right now. A lot of things are going to happen that you would have never thought possible as we onboard our people back and as we reinvent ourselves as business people. But that's what we do. That's why we're entrepreneurs, because we don't want to do it the old way. So let's just dust ourselves off, right? Let's let go of all of that shame and guilt and all that stuff that's holding us. Let's be vulnerable. Let's collaborate. Your biggest asset right now is collaborations with your peers, and let's go after it collectively to win.
Yeah, amen. What do you think the biggest mistake is that you see entrepreneurs making right now? I mean, I think Jack Welch spoke at an entrepreneur event years ago, and the iconic leader, and somebody asked him, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs if you could only give one piece of advice? And he said this: panic faster. He said that, and it's not about living in fear. It's about kind of accepting and acknowledging the situation and taking the action that you have to take today. What else do you see people doing that are trying to manage through this crisis that might be holding them back?
Number one thing that I see, and I think the reason why people end up hiring me, is solo thinking, right? They really live so much in their head, and they have this unrealistic point of view that they are supposed to have the answers, right? That they're supposed to see it in clear moving pictures, this plan from here to there, that they're supposed to have the answers, right? And they spend so much time in their head that if they just took literally from that idea, bouncing along your colleagues, right? Those people that you trust, to hear it out loud and get the different perspective, you're going to move faster to an answer and solution. So if you're living in your head right now, all your person you're hurting is yourself and your business, right? Collective, right? What do we learn with this universal reset is the power of we, right? Together we are stronger.
I have a question. If you're in the, say you're in the travel industry, we talk a lot about the travel industry. If you're in the travel industry and, you know, you spent the last 20 years in the travel industry and you see, you know, all these people that are laid off in the travel industry, nobody's on the planes, you got the hotels are all shut down. Are you thinking about how do I pivot and adapt and find something to do in travel and leisure? Or are you suggesting we look somewhere completely different? What do you do if you're in that stage?
It's closer than that, right? Because we are not our industry.
Okay.
Right. So if somebody is in travel and they've been traveling, like you said, for 20 years, they become very efficient. They have efficiencies, right? They have logistics, right? They also are spotters for usually local trends for their destination. They can land on the ground and they can find something interesting to eat, place and sleep and do faster than anybody else. So don't look at the industry you're in. Look at the skill set that you have acquired.
Look at the skill set that you've acquired. And what do you think are going to be some of the most important skill sets that people adopt during this time of crisis and kind of going forward? Like if I was going to go and I was going to double down on acquiring a certain set of skills, what would those skills be?
Agility, communication, technology, right? All of that. How fast can you utilize the tools from the quarantine, right? That's what I've been looking for when I'm, you know, we're hiring and expanding right now. We're doing exactly the opposite of everybody else because that's where our top talent is out there right now. They're fishing, right? And they're fishing for new opportunities because they're going, you know what? Maybe I want to homeschool. I'm going to take back those 3 hours of commute. You know what? Maybe I don't want to go work for my employer anymore. You know what? Maybe I don't want to be in this industry anymore. Right. So a lot of changes are happening because people are asking themselves the deep, hard questions, right? The reflection in the mirror that they've been avoiding for such a long time. And because of that, we're seeing that disruption in the marketplace. People are fishing for other opportunities. So if you're an entrepreneur, you should be fishing right back because that could be the person that you find that loosens up your brain to go, you know what? Maybe this is the right answer. Maybe this is the right product, the right services, right? The right pivot in the industry. And it's got to be somebody who's outside of your industry who sees it differently, right? So you're not going to find the solution in the people that have been doing the same wrong thing for 20 years too, right? It's going to be from somebody else who disrupts the industry because they see it objectively for where we're using it now, right? So we're not going back. I keep saying that. What do we think we're going to do? We're going to go back Monday morning. We're all going to go back to the same way. No, not all of our staff is not coming back because they don't want to, right? Not all of our staff are coming back in job descriptions and titles because they don't want to, right? You have to solve the problem based on where the people are at and what's important to them in their language. And when you understand what's important to people right now and what they're learning, and then you look at what the marketplace is, you'll see where the market isn't serving them. And that gives you the opportunity where you start digging and then collectively talking to, right, your forum group, right, your masterminds, your peer group to say, hey, listen, I have this idea. This is where I've always been making money. And here's where I see the gap. And here's what I think the pivot plan is. And for somebody to go, well, hang on, that's a little bit of a risk. Or what about this? Or here, let's try this first before you jump. And all those kind of things that are happening right now. That's the best thing about what's going on for me and for my colleagues is we are picking up the phone call and talking to people that we haven't spoken to 5, 10, maybe 20 years saying, hey, listen, you were a game changer then. You're probably a game changer now. What do you think about that? It's the conversations with colleagues that are going to unlock you into getting to where you need to do. Because listen, if you're an entrepreneur, if you've been in business, you've got the fire in your belly. You're not rolling over in this. You're going to push through.
There's a couple things that you just said that really stand out to me. The first is thinking outside of your industry. And I think that is so important, because in times of crisis, what I find is that people in the same industry, it becomes just a lot of groupthink, and everyone's talking about doing the same thing, and maybe the same thing isn't working. And so that's why for the Covey Business Festival, we have people from all different industries that are coming in, because they'll share a perspective from a different place. You'll hear maybe the same thing, but in a different way. And then you can take that and you can apply it to what it is that you're doing. Also, you were talking about getting out there and reaching out to people and talking to people and connecting with people. I think it's never been more important to get on the phone. It's like we've become afraid of the phone with email and text. It was created for you to talk to people. For those of you who don't know, who are too young to know this, it was created so you could talk on it. So originally, call people and talk to them. If you can, get live one-on-one with them, so you can read the body language and really understand where the pain points, right, and the points of high energy are. I think that's really important to make those personal connections, because not everyone is doing that. It is really a way that you can stand out today in your market by connecting to somebody one-on-one in a personal way like that.
Yeah, part of the way to survive a crisis is vulnerability. Being vulnerable to say, I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone, and I'm going to look, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be authentic. Say, hey, listen, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I would really love your feedback. Hey, listen, I usually wouldn't tell you like that, but right now I'm really afraid. Hey, listen, this thing that if I make this move, I'm going to lose everything. The minute you get it out of your head and you start talking to somebody that you respect, they're going to go, hey, listen, the reality is you're not going to lose everything. Right?
Sure.
That's in your head. That's not actually going to happen. You have an opportunity now to negotiate more than you've ever had before. Right? And so the minute you get out of your head and stop that solo thinking and start bouncing out, you start to see the realism that there's more opportunity here than there is risk. Right? It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Right? So one of my famous things I say all the time to people is real learning is painful. So if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning. So right now we're all uncomfortable because we got too comfortable. So now that we're uncomfortable, we're going to come out better than we ever were before, because we're going to get more in alignment in what we really love to do. Right. And that's what I can find for myself and my clients. I really took a look at saying, you know what? I spent a lot of time. I looked at all my calendar, all my tasks for the last year. And I was like, you know what? All these things I can do, but I don't love doing. Sure. These are the things I love doing. And guess what? There's my next business.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, this is a time to reinvent. If you're a person that is, trying to figure it out, if you've been laid off, if you've been furloughed, if you're trying to figure out maybe what is that thing that you do next, how do you start a business, a little side hustle on your own? Start with what you love, and then go to people in that space, in the what you love space, and ask them a couple of questions. Ask them, what's most important to you today? Yeah. Like, what do you need today? And then what has to happen? How do you know that you are getting what it is that you want? Super important. Because again, I give this example that, say, for example, I'm building an app, or actually, no, say I'm building an exercise solution. And I go to somebody and I ask them, what's most important to you? I'm building an exercise solution. And they say, well, that it's easy to use and easy to do. Well, here's the thing. We all have a different definition of what easy to use and easy to do is. So the second question to ask, which most people don't, is great. Well, then what has to happen? How do you know it's easy to use? And the person will give you their rules. That's their buyer blueprint. Hey, it's going to be a tech solution because I got to do it from home. I want it to be an app. I want it to live on my iPhone. By the way, I use an iPhone, not an Android. And they go on and on and on and on. So, start with, like Amilya is saying, start with what do I love? And then ask people in the what I love space, what do you need? And how do you know you're getting what you want? And that can be life-changing.
Right. And so we have something that we give our clients when they onboard with us, and it's called a letter to my friends, right? Because what we figure is the first gap that leaders have is they don't know what value they bring to the people around them. So we sit with an executive and I say, tell me the 10 reasons why people are friends with you. Tell me why. 10 reasons why they work for you, 10 reasons why they're friends with you. Why is it? And they give me 10 reasons. And I go, great. We send out the exercise to the letter to my friends. They send them out to their employees, their friends, their family, whatever, and they come back. In most cases, they're not even close. Not even close of why it is that people, right? And but what you find is the commonality. So the three things that are common between all the people that you ask on why they're friends with you shows you what your value is. Right. And when you start to understand what your value is, your value proposition, you stop wasting time on the other things that you thought you were doing that was valuable, because it's not. These are the three things that are valuable. So now when you take a look at what those things that are valuable, now take a look at it in your company, in your category, and in your industry. Now you're getting closer to a bullseye.
That's so funny, because, you know, most people sell. I think the biggest mistake salespeople make is they sell what they think is most important, not what other people.
Drinking your own Kool-Aid. Yep.
you drink your own Kool-Aid, or you were told by your boss or by your manager, this is what we need to push. And you wonder why you're not converting. You're not converting because you sell what other people think is what you think is important, not the customer. And that is a great example. I had a guy, I love this story. So I had DirecTV installed, and it's probably 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago. And the person came over, he was such a nice guy. And we were walking around the house because we were trying to figure out where to put the dish so it was like pointing to the right place in the sky. So I got to know him. I said, hey, you know, how long have you been doing this? And he said, I've been doing it like 20 years. I said, you must love it. And he said, I absolutely hate what I do. And I said, well, why don't you do something else? What do you want to do? He said, I want to have my own business. I said, well, what would you do? He said, I don't know. That's why I don't have my own business. So I gave him an assignment. And I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do the 5 people you spend the most time with, your friends, your family, whatever. Because every day we refer people to other people. So somebody calls and they say, I need a crisis manager. I refer them to you. You know, somebody calls and they say, I need this. I refer that person to that person. So ask your 5 friends, if they got that call and they were going to refer somebody to you, what would they be referring you for? And so he said, great. And I said, here's my phone number, text me. I'm curious what they say. So he doesn't text, he calls me that night. He says, check this out. He said, I talked to 5 people. They all said the same thing. I would have you install like a home theater system for me.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah.
It was right before the Super Bowl. And so one of the guys said, I would love it if you would install a home theater system for the Super Bowl. And he said, they'll pay you to do it. Here's the thing. The guy said yes. And then he said, but I won't take your money. And I said to him, why not? He said, what's common sense to you isn't common sense to everybody else. He's going to pay somebody, let him pay you.
Right.
So he took the money. At that thing, he got a whole bunch of referrals and installed a year later, he was making $75,000 a year with his own home installation business.
Love that. I love that. Right. So again, it's that jumpstart. It's making that connection between who you are and why the people are naturally attracted to you. It's not, you know, the universal reset right now has showed us that push no longer works. Yeah. You have to lead people in, but you can't lead them to something if you don't understand why you have value to them. Right. Sure. And that's where the skill set we're holding at. Right. And to stop trying to be something that we're not, right. Living on our Instagram thing that everything looks all peachy and rosy. Right. And start being authentic with this is who I am and this is the value that I bring to the world. And I'm going to align myself with other people who bring complementary value. Right. So what I do for a living, right, and what you do for a living, it complements each other, but it's not the same skill. Well, don't you think if we were both doing it on the same client, it would cause a bigger value? And that's the power of the collective. And I think that's the thing that business owners are thinking about right now. They're like, listen, how do I jump in the boat with other people so we're all paddling in the right direction for all the right common cause to serve?
Yeah. And I think, you know, and you look at that person. So I don't know how many people are installing home theater systems right now. I don't know. But the question I ask, because I'm always asking, is how does that person pivot today? So what's a big problem that people, so I'm asking, okay, so if I'm him, I might be thinking, I understand this techie stuff and I know how to get.
Listen, people are trying to install everybody is right now. How do I use Zoom? How do I use this? How do I use that? I mean, everybody now is working from home. Again, crisis. I fix problems, right? People are calling me going, oh my gosh, I've got 4 kids homeschooling. What do I do? They need more bandwidth, right? And so it's just problem solving, right? So he solves problems, right? Utilizing technology into somebody's home. That's always a business. It may be a different service, but it's always a business, right? Because people always need to figure out how to bring their home and their business together. No differently than there's somebody out there who's teaching the tools on how to separate your business from your home, right? Because that brings a whole mess of problems in it. And so when you figure out what you're great at, right? Which you hear this all the time, figure out what you're great at and then figure out how you serve others. Nothing's changed about that. I'm saying the same thing. What makes you a genius? Why do people come to you, right? Because that's the pull in, not a push. And then say, okay, what have I been doing in my current business? And how does it apply today? Because things have changed, right? So you see all kinds of innovation that are happening now in delivery servicing. The deliveries have now changed, right? How we communicate, that's changed. Our need for people, that's changed, right? And so all of these opportunities on how are we going to do things differently, because we are going to do things differently. People are not going to randomly get on the plane and travel as freely as they did before, right? And so we saw change happen after 9/11, right? It used to take me, I used to go show up at the airport 15 minutes before flight. Now I'm there hours before flight. But all of the entertainment in the airport changed to service that extra time. Well, guess what? Now things are going to change, right? So how are we going to service the difference on how the industry is going to change, right? We're not going to stop collaborating with people. That's not possible. We're just going to collaborate differently.
I can't stop thinking about this home theater installation guy. I mean, I can't. I mean, he could be helping people with their internet. He could be selling a kit. Imagine if he sold a kit that was, I will set up your home office for you. I'll do the computer. I'll get you set up with your printer. I'll bring the whole thing. Like, he should be calling, I got to call this guy. He should be calling every one of his customers right now and saying that this is something that he's doing. It's an add-on service.
Hey, listen, that's how Instacart and Shipped was created, right? If you would have said before, people were like, come on, nobody's going to pay you to deliver the groceries to the doorstep. Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. You know, and so everything is changing. And we see with change, these new innovations that didn't seem possible just a moment ago, but they do now. A whole lot of people now are building studios in their home, right? They're trying to figure out how to do photography. They're looking for better sound and more mic, and they're trying to figure out how to use their technology so they can communicate to more people, right? We've seen it with the bandwidth with Zoom, right? Everybody's on Zoom and all these other things. There's just all of those things are going to provide opportunities to bring another type of service, because people are going to have to get organized different. They're collaborating differently. They're using different task management tools, project management tools, because they're no longer can just walk down the hall and go talk to their colleague.
And it doesn't have to be hard. So you just mentioned everyone's at home and you mentioned Zoom and all this stuff. I'm always live casting. I'm live casting all the time. And it is such a pain in the neck. It is everything about it right now.
But you do it so well.
No, it just seems like everything about it is really hard. So yesterday we were supposed to be on, and the internet went down, not just at my house. The internet went down for the neighborhood for 3 hours. So we had to cancel. So there's that issue, which we don't control. By the way, that's old lines, you know, from the house to the hub to the, like, that issue's not going away. That issue's not going away with this bandwidth being so squeezed. So I've got that issue. I've got, what kind of mic do I get? And here's the thing with the mics, you may get a referral to one, but you know, on Amazon, it's going to take you 6 weeks to get it. Where else do I go? I need it today. I set up I have a video switchboard.
It's so funny that people have forgotten how to order stuff outside of Amazon. It really was only a year ago we knew how to order without going to Amazon. Trust me, there is ways to do it.
Right. So, but here's the thing. So the whole live streaming thing, and everybody wants to live stream right now. The whole live stream can be so tough, and there's such a steep learning curve if you're trying to do certain things. If you don't have to, maybe you're a TV person, right? Maybe you're, I don't know maybe you're a video person, whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. Put together a little simple course. You don't have to record it. You can do it over Zoom with somebody, or go to their house. Stay 6 feet away if you got to. I don't know. But here's the thing. Just sit down and show the person. It has taken me weeks to learn this stuff, where if somebody had marketed themselves and I've searched for it, that I'll show you how to do stuff, I would have paid them so much. By
Sure.
the way, if you're watching and you're out there, put it in the comments. I will pay you to teach me this stuff.
I mean, I'm doing the same thing. People are calling me and they're saying, how do I approach a crisis? And I'm like, let's pivot our thinking, right? How do I problem solve? How do I get uncomfortable? How do I look at those options? And it's literally, we're solving problems in 20-minute phone calls, right? Because that's all I've done is crisis, right? From being called to the Vegas shooting, to stuff in 9/11, to Storm Sandy, to bankrupt companies, right? To M&As, to, one partner saying I'm done, right? I've done 700 mediations last year, right? Wow. And so it's literally about just taking somebody from an outside perspective and saying, okay, tell me what you see, and then let me show you what I see. Because it gets the gerbil back on the wheel for us to go, wait a minute, maybe I'm just thinking about it wrong, right? They're not expensive solutions, right? It's just to get you moving in the right direction, because you're going to remember, from a behavior standpoint, your conscious brain wants to hold on to what it believes. Whether it's good for you or for bad for you, it wants to hold on to it. And the reason why it's doing it is it thinks it's surviving, right? And so you've got to get pushed through to get very uncomfortable. And the minute that you get uncomfortable, you realize, wait a minute, I'm actually more comfortable now. It's like waking up from a bad dream. You're having a bad dream, you wake up, you're panicked, and then you go, wait a minute, I'm actually okay, right? Same thing, that's crisis. You're going to panic first. But then you're going to release the false belief and land on solid facts to realize that you can take this option, this option, this option, or this option. None of them are perfect. And you're going to pick the least of the evils. And when you start moving in that direction, you're going to get more information. And guess what? It's not set in stone. You can pivot again.
Damn. That's good. No, it's so important. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I think that, that's what we have to do. And it can be very uncomfortable, and it can feel very painful, and it can be very unsettling. But what's more unsettling? Being stuck. Being stuck is more unsettling.
Or waiting for a rescue, right? Waiting for rescue. Nobody's coming.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming. Nobody's giving you free money. Nobody's coming, right? Nobody even understands us, let alone somebody's going to come rescue us. We're going to rescue each other. Entrepreneurs are going to lean on other entrepreneurs. Executives are going to lean on other executives. We're going to collaborate together, and we're going to say we have a win personality, and we're going to get to the other side better than we were before. Because trust me, there was a lot of baggage we were all carrying around. We were not exactly that happy.
Isn't it amazing in this time to think about how little we actually need? Like, I look in my house, or I look at the things I thought that were important, but how much we really need. And versus how much we actually have or try to have, or things like that. Hey, I just want to mention a few things that have come up in our comments from the different channels. Number one is we really encourage people to support their small businesses. You don't have to order on Amazon. If you can buy locally, if you can order locally, if you can go eat locally, support each other, support entrepreneurs. That's number one. Number two, I want to shout out the Good Men Project. I'm familiar with it. It's really awesome. Michael Woolbright is a part and has put this together. The Good Men Project. It is a great place to go for community, for guys through this period. And so I think that's some really awesome stuff. Also, there are a couple of people that I'm looking at over here that I know where they are with their business. And I know that they're resisting change, and they're resisting letting go of what has worked for them for so long. And I know this feeling, I know what they're feeling without them telling me. It feels so unfair. It feels so frustrating. It feels, I did a great job. I served my client. I had the perfect plan, the perfect team. I executed flawlessly. It's not cool. Like, this isn't, what do you tell those people?
So, it's like any growth, right? It's like, for those of us who have kids, we know something that they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And as much as we want to tell them, they want to stomp off and they want to go with, this is not fair. Look at all the kids that they're stealing their high school graduations, right? Mm-hmm. People who just invested in businesses. They had the grand open the day before this whole thing happened. Right. And so, yes, things can seem unfair. Things can seem impossible. It's just because you can't see the other side yet. Right? Because it is coming. It's no different than one of my clients I was talking to was just getting ready to purchase a building. They thought it was $10,000 a month, right? They negotiated down to 96, right? Well, guess what it is today? It's 66, right? If they would have closed then, it would have been way more than if they closed now, right? And so even though you're saying you're holding on so tightly because you believe it's not fair, I worked hard and I deserve whatever it is, the universe thinks you deserve more. And the only way you're going to get to more is if you let it go. And if you really want to get vulnerable and honest, let's really look at what you're holding on to. Let me take a look at your calendar from 90 days ago where you're telling me now you were so happy. It's like a bad marriage, right? You go, oh yeah, but you know, that one time, right? You forget the bad things and you want to hold on to the good things. Weren't you the guy who was just saying my employees are lazy and they never really want to show up and they don't take things seriously and why don't they care like I care? You just said that 90 days ago. Now you're like, oh my God, I had this perfect team. I had this perfect whatever. You're lying to yourself. You're lying. So let's get to what's real, right? What are you really letting go of? Because everybody's replaceable. We're replaceable. So let's not take our ego so seriously here, right? What are you great at? What are your people great at? What problems do you solve? And what changed from when you opened that door, whether it was 90 days ago or 10 years ago? What changed in the marketplace that you have not examined with the level of detail that you need to examine it now? And say, okay, what does my business now mean to teenagers? What does it mean to the 20-somethings? What does it mean to the 30-somethings? What does it mean to 40s, 50s, 60s? Does it mean for people globally? What does it mean for people in my community? Ask yourself all these questions, and it's going to lead to the answer. But the only way you're going to get to the answer is if you let go of your old answers, your old thoughts. Let's pretend none of those exist, and let's lead it that way. And I'm telling you, that is what a mentor is doing with you on a phone call. They're kicking your ass and they're going, really? Because you told me you hated your employees. Really? You told me you hated your marriage. What? You told me you hated your kids. Let's look at the notes. So let's get to what's real, right? Because the minute you get to what's real, you're like, actually, I really value my employee because you know what he does so great? Now you're spinning your thinking and you're putting together what makes each of your team member great. And then you go, wait a minute, you know what we're really great at? Which goes to any industry. Then you can make your choices on what the plan is to come back. That comeback plan is 100% dependent on how vulnerable you are willing to get collaboratively with your colleagues. You won't see the answer by yourself. If you're in your head by yourself, you won't see it. That I can guarantee you. That's why they say there's no solo in success.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. Amilya, how do we get a hold of you? How do people get in touch with you?
Amilya.com. That's that easy. If you can spell my first name, you can find me.
Amilya.com. We want to thank Amilya Antonetti. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to see you next week at the COVID Business Festival.
Yes, COVID. I can't wait.
So much more. And I know for people that want to get started now, we have much more that we're going to share throughout the day and throughout the next week. But if you go to COVIDBusinessFestival.com, Amilya also has a free gift for all of you. So you're able to download that gift as well. We'll get that to you as well. Just an amazing thing that she's offered and provided for our community. I want to thank all of you. This is Scott Duffy with What Now with Scott Duffy, presented by SAP Concur. We will see you all tomorrow. Thank you.